If you've ever wondered why so many athletes today still try to mimic the look of Arnold Schwarzenegger or Zane, the answer lies in the legendary golden era of bodybuilding. That period was all about an almost artistic pursuit of symmetry and proportion. It wasn't just about packing on muscle with no control. It was about sculpting a body worthy of a Greek statue. Small waist, broad shoulders, full chest, and well-shaped legs. The goal was to create a balanced, harmonious physique, unlike today's obsession with sheer size at any cost. Icons like Mentzer and Franco Columbu also stood out during this era, not just because of their muscle mass, but because they nailed the perfect combo of strength and aesthetics. They were strong and looked amazing on stage, a signature of that time. Every pose was carefully designed, not just to show off muscles, but to tell a story with their bodies. It was almost like a choreographed dance, showing their physiques in the most impressive way possible. Symmetry was so crucial that even tiny details, like the proportion between calves and arms, were taken super seriously. Zane, for instance, was famous for his insanely small waist, which made his V-taper pop even more. This visual trick made him look way bigger than he actually was, a strategy many still try to replicate today. It proved that back in the golden era, quality always trumped quantity. Beyond aesthetics, these athletes valued real functional strength. A lot of them competed in powerlifting or did strength exhibitions, lifting crazy heavy weights outside the bodybuilding stage. It wasn't just about looking strong, they were strong. This mix of beauty and raw power set a standard that many still see as the true peak of bodybuilding. Another big thing about that era was how natural the physiques looked. Sure, steroids were already around, but nothing like the extreme levels we see today. The focus was on shaping the body through smart training, disciplined diets, and a lifestyle geared toward long-term health in the sport. This made their physiques feel more human, inspiring everyday people to chase that ideal. Do you feel like modern bodybuilding has lost that connection? Their obsession with symmetry also shaped how they trained. These guys prioritized basic, compound exercises and full-range movements, always respecting the body's anatomy. It wasn't just lift heavy and hope for the best. It was about sculpting with precision. They spent time fixing imbalances, improving posture, and perfecting their posing. That's why every stage performance felt like a work of art, with lines and angles designed to impress both the crowd and the judges. During the golden era, training was taken to the extreme, but with intelligence and intuition. They didn't follow rigid spreadsheets or overcomplicated methods. They trained instinctively, listening to their bodies and adjusting their routines based on what they saw in the mirror. If they noticed a weak point, they'd crank up the volume without fear of overtraining. That word barely existed in their vocabulary. Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of the best examples of this mindset. Once he noticed his calves were out of proportion and became obsessed with fixing them, dedicating hours to brutal calf workouts. He refused to accept a physique that wasn't perfectly balanced. So he attacked the issue with intense daily sessions until he hit the standard he wanted. That level of dedication became a symbol of the golden era philosophy. Train as much as it takes to reach perfection. Another legend, Tom Platz, became famous for his mind-blowing legs, thanks to squat sessions that pushed human limits. He'd do insanely long sets with high reps, spending hours focused on just one muscle group. For him, there was no such thing as optimal volume or ideal frequency dictated by studies. What mattered was what he saw in the mirror and the mind-muscle connection he could create. The truth is, these athletes were their own guinea pigs. They experimented with methods, tweaked their techniques, and learned everything by doing. Back then, there wasn't a ton of scientific research applied to bodybuilding like we have today. It was all trial and error. Every workout was a chance to discover something new about their own body, which created a mindset of constant evolution. Even with all that intensity, they had a huge respect for proper form. Every rep was about hitting perfect execution, focusing on maximum contraction of the target muscle. It wasn't just about moving more weight, it was about stimulating the muscle in the most effective way possible. The mind-muscle connection was almost spiritual, something a lot of modern lifters tend to neglect while chasing bigger numbers. Another key factor was the training environment. Places like Gold's Gym in Venice Beach were basically temples of bodybuilding. Athletes would hype each other up, swap ideas, correct each other's form, and constantly push each other to get better. There was a real sense of camaraderie that fueled everyone's growth. Can you imagine what it'd be like to train next to legends like Arnold or Franco Columbu? Drop a comment if you'd have the guts to take on that old-school grind. In the end, the golden era philosophy was simple. Train hard, listen to your body, and don't be afraid to put in the work for a balanced physique. They didn't follow trends or jump on the latest fitness fads. They trusted their own experience and persistence. Maybe that's the biggest takeaway we can get from them. Discipline and patience are the real keys to success. When it came to diet, the golden era was all about keeping it simple, straightforward, and based on real food. Forget crazy diets or ultra-processed stuff. A champion's plate was loaded with lean red meat, grilled chicken, whole eggs, fish, cottage cheese, and veggies. It was basic but done right, focusing on quality and nutrient density. They knew their bodies needed premium fuel to grow strong and aesthetic. Supplements were simple too. Unlike today's shelves packed with flashy products, back then it was mostly whey protein, multivitamins, and maybe some cod liver oil. That's it. No magic formulas, no overhyped names. Supplements were there to fill in the nutritional gaps, not to replace actual food. They were a complement, not a crutch. Protein intake was sky high, which they saw as essential for muscle building. It wasn't unusual to hear stories of athletes eating over 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, mostly from steak, eggs, and chicken. Fats also had a solid place in their diets, coming from whole eggs and meats, supporting hormone production and energy levels. Have you ever calculated how much protein you're really eating per day? Interestingly, carbs were managed carefully, not eliminated, but adjusted based on goals. More carbs during bulking phases, fewer when cutting down. Staples like rice, potatoes, and oats were their go-to choices, always used in moderation. The main focus was keeping strength and muscle size while avoiding unnecessary fat gain. This clean, natural approach was reflected in their results. Golden era physiques were dense, lean, and well-proportioned, without that bloated, artificial look you sometimes see in certain modern divisions. They valued classic aesthetics, and it all started with their diet. There was no worshiping of the crazy, dirty bulking off-season. Another crucial point was discipline. There was no such thing as a weekly cheat day or going wild on fast food. Their relationship with food was different. Eating was part of the job, a daily commitment to their goal. It was common to see athletes cooking their own meals and sticking to a strict eating routine all year round. Could you follow a diet like that for months straight? Finally, even with way fewer resources, these athletes built legendary physiques with real food and relentless consistency. They show that you don't need to reinvent the wheel to get results. Maybe that's the real lesson. Before blowing money on fancy supplements, fix your diet and nail the basics. When we think of gyms today, we picture huge rooms filled with high-tech machines and digital gadgets. But back in the golden era, things were way more old school. Gyms were smaller, with a real family vibe. They had heavy dumbbells, Olympic barbells, and just a few machines. The focus was on the basics. It was raw iron, sweat on the floor, and a serious yet passionate energy that made you want to work your ass off. Compound movements were the foundation of everything. Squats, bench presses, deadlifts, and overhead presses were non-negotiable. These lifts hit the whole body, building strength, muscle density, and symmetry. Nobody cared about fancy new machines. The secret was simple. Lift real weight with flawless execution. Isolation exercises had their place too, but as a finishing touch. After wrecking the big muscle groups with the basics, they'd go in for detail work. Curls for biceps, lateral raises for shoulders, triceps dips on the bars. The idea was to sculpt the body like a sculptor chisels a statue. Every little detail was there to enhance overall aesthetics, not to blow up random muscles just for show. One of the biggest things that set the golden era apart was the intensity of their training. They didn't rely on cookie-cutter programs or Excel spreadsheets to plan their routines. The mindset was simple: train until you squeeze every last drop out of your muscles that day. It was almost an intuitive effort where the mind-muscle connection dictated the weight, reps, and even rest times. This old-school feel it and adjust approach was a sharp contrast to today's more scientific methods. Nowadays, it's all about optimal volume, frequency, periodization. Back then, the motto was feel, adjust, and grow. They weren't afraid to push past limits, as long as it was done with intelligence and dedication. Of course, injuries happen, but the priority was always the visual result, not numbers on a spreadsheet. The gym atmosphere also played a huge role. Places like Gold's Gym and World Gym weren't just training spots, they were legendary meeting grounds. Training next to guys like Arnold, Franco, and Lou Ferrigno created a vibe you couldn't replicate. The energy was contagious. Can you picture hitting a chest workout right next to Arnold in the 70s? That's motivation on another level. In short, the golden era gyms were like classic bodybuilding laboratories. With minimal equipment and tons of creativity, they built physiques that are still iconic today. Bodybuilding back then was about so much more than just getting huge. It was a true art form, where every athlete aimed to sculpt their body with harmony and aesthetic beauty. The goal wasn't to be the biggest, it was to be the most proportional, the most symmetrical, the most pleasing to the eye. They wanted to look like living Greek statues, real-life masterpieces. This artistic vision shaped everything they did, from exercise selection to posing routines. Every detail was thought out to highlight strengths and mask weaknesses. It was a perfect blend of science, intuition, and pure passion. Bodybuilding wasn't seen as a vanity sport, but as a celebration of human potential. A strong, beautiful, and functional body was a sign of discipline and self-respect. Another standout trait of the golden era was the spirit of camaraderie. In legendary gyms like Gold's Venice, athletes trained together, shared tips, and pushed each other forward. There wasn't that toxic rivalry or inflated egos you sometimes see today. On the contrary, it was a real community where helping each other improve was the norm. Bodybuilders of that time were seen as role models of health, strength, and balance. They represented a healthy lifestyle, heavy training, real food, simple habits. Unlike today, where bodybuilding is often associated with extremes and health risks. Back then, these athletes earned genuine respect and admiration from the general public. Do you think that image has been lost over time? The golden era mindset was also more relaxed and fun. Despite the serious training, they didn't take themselves too seriously outside the gym. They got involved in movies, ads, and social events, helping to popularize bodybuilding in a positive light. Arnold, for example, became a Hollywood star, proving that a bodybuilder could be charismatic and inspiring. Another important aspect was their balance between personal life and sports. They didn't live in isolated bubbles. Many had families, side careers, and active social lives. Bodybuilding was a huge part of their lives, but not the only focus. This helped them keep the passion alive without falling into destructive extremes. The culture of the golden era left a legacy that goes way beyond the stage. It teaches us that bodybuilding doesn't have to be just about size or performance. It can be a journey of self-discovery and personal growth. But when the 80s and 90s rolled in, bodybuilding started shifting direction. The focus moved away from harmonious proportions and classic aesthetics towards something much more extreme: size at any cost. The quest for a balanced physique gave way to an obsession with getting as massive as possible, even if that meant sacrificing symmetry. That was the start of the mass monster era. Have you noticed how modern physiques look more bloated than sculpted? This shift was driven by new pharmaceutical resources, especially the use of growth hormone, HGH, and insulin. While these compounds were initially used to boost recovery and muscle growth, they came with some pretty visible side effects. The most famous of them? The dreaded GH gut, that distended midsection look, even in athletes with insanely low body fat. Do you think this damaged the sport's image? Another big change was what judges started valuing on stage. In the golden era, symmetry and stage presence were crucial. But by the 90s and 2000s, it was all about who's the biggest. This created a cycle where athletes felt forced to chase even more size just to stay competitive, even if it meant sacrificing aesthetics. Would you agree that the sport lost a bit of its essence in that process? Ronnie Coleman became the poster boy of this new phase. With an absolutely massive physique, he dominated the Mr. Olympia with an insane combo of muscle mass and definition. But his look was a far cry from the refined aesthetics of Arnold and Frank Zane. Still, his work ethic and charisma kept him beloved by fans. From there, the size race only got more intense. Athletes started using more aggressive protocols in training, supplementation, and especially with PEDs. This brought some jaw-dropping size gains, but also ramped up health risks and visual downsides, like lost waistlines and stiff posing routines. To be fair, this evolution also brought technical and scientific advancements. Today, we know so much more about nutrition, recovery, and training. But the challenge remains. How do we balance size, health, and aesthetics? Maybe the answer lies in bringing back some golden era principles, adapted to today's reality. Back then, golden era bodybuilders didn't have access to fancy tech, training apps, or high-end body scans. The mirror was their main tool. They adjusted workouts and diets based on what they saw. Am I improving? Am I getting worse? It was a much more intuitive approach where feeling your body mattered more than following numbers on a spreadsheet. Have you ever trained by trusting the mirror more than your fitness app? Today, things are totally different. The explosion of information brought scientific studies, advanced protocols, and high-tech equipment. From precision body scans to apps that calculate your training volume, everything is measured, tracked, and optimized. Social media also plays a huge role, setting trends and shaping what people consider an ideal physique. But with so much information, did bodybuilding gain clarity, or did it lose its soul? With data coming from every direction, the sport has taken a more technical, less instinctive path. A lot of modern athletes follow evidence-based routines, but in the process, they lose that deeper connection with their own bodies. Sure, science has brought major improvements, but sometimes overthinking kills the passion. Training becomes numbers on a screen instead of a personal journey. Despite all this technological evolution, the golden era is still seen by many as the gold standard. That balance between strength, aesthetics, and health continues to inspire athletes and fans around the world. Even without today's high-tech resources, those physiques remain unbeatable in terms of proportion and harmony. What is it about the golden era that makes it so timeless? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Another interesting point is how technology changed the way we consume bodybuilding. Back in the day, references came from magazines and movies. Today, with Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, exposure is instant and global. This creates a constant comparison loop, where chasing online approval often overshadows the pursuit of personal growth. Still, despite the criticism, technology has brought undeniable benefits. Access to information helps beginners avoid rookie mistakes that used to be learned the hard way. Recovery techniques, injury prevention protocols, and nutritional advancements now help athletes extend their careers. The real challenge is using tech as an ally without losing that critical eye and body awareness that defined the golden era. At the end of the day, the biggest lesson is about finding the sweet spot between classic and modern. Technology should serve the athlete, not the other way around. Bringing back the intuitive essence of the golden era, combined with today's scientific knowledge, might be the key to a new golden age of bodybuilding, strong, aesthetic, and healthy. After years of chasing extreme size, bodybuilding started showing signs of reconnecting with its aesthetic roots. In 2016, the IFBB launched the Classic Physique division to revive the iconic golden era look. The goal was simple: reward physiques with proportion, symmetry, and harmony, paying homage to legends like Arnold, Zane, and Mentzer. This new category quickly won over the audience. Unlike the open division, where being the biggest always stood out, Classic Physique values the beauty of a shape. Small waist, broad chest, well-defined shoulders, and proportional legs. Size alone isn't enough. You have to bring elegance to the stage. The V-taper made its comeback as a symbol of excellence, and fans fell in love again with physiques that looked like living sculptures. Classic Physique's success came fast. It quickly became one of the most popular categories, both in competitions and on social media. Athletes like Chris Bumstead turned into global icons, blending classic aesthetics with charisma and genuine connection with fans. Today, many young lifters dream of building a classic physique look, rather than chasing the extreme mass of the open division. What about you? Which style inspires you more? One of the key rules that made Classic stand out was the weight limit based on height. This forced athletes to maintain proportion and symmetry, avoiding the temptation to bulk up uncontrollably. This rule helped preserve the golden era philosophy, ensuring more visually pleasing physiques. Do you think this kind of weight control was a good move? Should it be applied to the open division too? Beyond aesthetics, Classic Physique also brought back the art of posing. Athletes spend time crafting routines that highlight their strengths, creating impactful and memorable performances. This focus on stage performance breathed new life into the sport, which had been getting a bit mechanical. What's the most memorable Classic Physique posing routine you've seen? Share it in the comments. So, after this trip down memory lane, one thing's clear: the golden era wasn't just a phase, it was a philosophy. A time when bodybuilding was about more than just piling on mass. It was about sculpting a body that looked powerful, aesthetic, and timeless. Proportion, symmetry, and that V-taper perfection mattered more than any number on a scale. And that legacy still resonates today. The rise of Classic Physique proved that the golden era never really went away. It was just waiting for the right moment to shine again. Now, with a better balance between science, technology, and that old-school mindset, bodybuilding is finding its way back to its roots. But here's the real question for you. Do you believe the golden era was the true peak of bodybuilding? Or do you think the sport still has room to evolve into something even greater? Drop your opinion in the comments. I'd love to hear your take on it. If you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on more content like this. And hey, share this video with a friend who's always talking about Arnold, Zane, or the glory days of bodybuilding. Let's keep this golden era spirit alive. Today, with all the tech evolution, new tools, and easy access to information, bodybuilding has taken some different paths. The race for extreme size has dominated competitions, creating jaw-dropping physiques, but not always in a way that appeals to the general public. On the other hand, movements like Classic Physique prove that the spirit of the golden era is still alive. So here's the big question. Which of these paths do you think is the future of bodybuilding? Throughout this video, we've talked about legends like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Frank Zane, Mike Mentzer, and Sergio Oliva. Names that still inspire generations, mainly because of how they approached the sport. They trained with heart, with passion, always chasing that perfect balance between strength, aesthetics, and health. Now I want to hear from you. Do you prefer the classic look of the golden era, or are you more into the mass monsters of modern bodybuilding? Drop a comment down below. I'm really curious to know which version of bodybuilding inspires you more. Do you think the future is about bringing back those classic proportions and aesthetics, or should we keep pushing the limits of size? Your opinion matters, and it can spark some great discussions here. Let's keep this conversation going. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button to support the channel. That helps us a lot to keep bringing high-quality content about the world of bodybuilding. And of course, if you're not subscribed yet, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Around here, we talk seriously about the sport, but always in a simple, direct way. Oh, and if you know someone who loves bodybuilding or someone who needs to learn more about the sport's history, share this video with them. Let's spread this message and show more people what the golden era was really about. Who knows, maybe this video will inspire someone to chase a more balanced and healthy physique like the icons of the past. Lastly, I want to thank you for watching all the way to the end. that shows you truly care about bodybuilding and want to learn more about its roots. Together, we can keep the essence of the golden era alive and build a future where aesthetics, strength, and health go hand in hand. Thanks a ton for being here, and I'll see you in the next video. We're in this together.